The sound of a door creaking gently closed first roused Deborah Foster from the light slumber into which she had fallen. The bedroom's heavy velvet drapes had been drawn to mask out the somber light of the late January afternoon, and as she raised herself on an elbow, she could make out no figure in the shadows of the great room. Yet she knew instinctively someone had been there watching over her in her sleep. She gave a small shudder as she realized what this could mean. The murderer of her sister. Hope must already be on the alert, spying on her and waiting for the precise moment when it would be most practical to strike her down and remove any threat of exposure. Quickly, she threw aside the woolen blanket the maid had brought. She swung out of the tall four-poster bed and hurried across the thickly carpeted floor to draw back the window drapes, allowing the scant gray daylight to bring the various features of the room into relief. Even as she did so, a new attack was made on her senses, one that made her stand rigid with fear by the window, an expression of sheer horror crossing her pretty oval face. Her golden hair, parted in the middle and drawn tightly back to be gathered in thick coils at the nape of her neck, together with her delicate coloring, gave her a fragile look. Her petite figure in the traveling dress of brown, with elaborate black braid trim and flowing skirt in the latest style of this year, 1882, hardly suggested the courage of mind and body possessed by her. Yet although she found herself filled with the terror of the unknown at this moment, she was not a coward. It was the familiar odor of lilac perfume that had caused her to suddenly freeze with fear. Now it seemed to suffuse the big room with its overpowering scent, the scent she would always think of as being particular to Hope, her several months dead sister. The phantom caller had clearly left this proof of having been there. Deborah swayed slightly, weary and dazed by the long, difficult journey that had brought her to this lonely big mansion so far from the America where she'd recently been a visitor. It was even remote from the London townhouse, which had always been home to her and Hope, until her younger sister had fled from it to come to this isolated place and be with the man she loved. Come to meet a violent death, as it turned out. Her dark blue eyes, wide open in this moment of shock, took in the details of the lavish bedroom on the third floor of the old castle to which she'd been assigned, and almost at once she saw the crumpled, tiny white object on the carpet by her bed. She forced herself to take faltering steps toward it and knelt to pick it up. It was a linen handkerchief with an ornate lace edge and the single letter H embroidered on it in soft pink thread. As she stared at it in her hand, the fears she had known gave way to an overpowering new emotion. Tears of regret brimmed from the lovely blue eyes. "Hope?" she said in a low, tense voice. "Hope! What does it mean?" Of course, there was no answer in the shadowed silence of the high-ceilinged room. She hadn't expected any, but she was certain of one thing. This handkerchief had once belonged to Hope, and somehow it had been brought here and left by her bed. It had been left as a token of some sort. Was it a warning? A symbol to let her know she would soon join Hope in death? A chill went through her at the thought, since she felt anything was possible in this strange house. Putting the handkerchief in the pocket of her skirt, she swept across the room and tried the door. It was locked with the key still in it, exactly as she had left it. So there was no explanation of the strange visitation there. With a troubled look, she made her way slowly to the fireplace and stood gazing into the dying embers of what had shortly before been a rousing log fire. With the diminishing flames, a coolness had settled on the room. She knew that more than an hour must have passed since she had stretched out on the bed to rest, and it would soon be time to wash and dress for dinner. She glanced toward the window and saw that even in the few minutes since she had risen from the bed, it had grown more gray.